Hi, welcome to Art of the Budget. My name is Nicole. My pronouns are she and her, and I live in the Pacific Northwest on the traditional unceded territory of the Coast Salish Nations. And today we're doing a kind of extreme grocery budget challenge. I spent $24.55. That comes in at about $1.15 per meal, but that was for a whole week of meals. And this is, cooking on a budget and during a very busy week. So working 2 jobs, and I'm also doing a kind of training class for the next 10 weeks. So I was doing all of those things, working around it and working with a pretty tight budget. So I tried to bring in a good amount of variety. I tried to create meals that were relatively healthful and nutritious and satisfying. And I included some snacks. The rules that I set for my budget challenges is that all of the primary food needs to come out of the budget, but I do allow myself to use oils, spices, and sugar. So basic pantry necessities that I think most people have that aren't really specialized at all. I am a coffee drinker, so I include coffee in the budget. I went to 3 places. Essentially, I went to Grocery Outlet, which is a great source for budget meals. I went to the dollar store. I did those 2 stores in my first extreme grocery budget challenge. And then I also went to a place called Smart Foods Food Service. And I did that so I could get bulk tofu. It's a great protein source and it's much more economical than meat. And then I had a few things in the house. And so I just checked f.i.r.e, which is where most things I get come from. And I'll explain those in the haul. So I did try to go a little bit more veggie heavy as best I could. Something that I wanted to say is that my dollar store when I was shopping had boxes of pasta and tomato sauce, and that would be another really great kind of basic option to bulk up some budget meals. I'm not a huge fan of pasta and tomato sauce, and so I went with the beans and rice option. And then the last thing that I wanted to say is that I'm an intuitive eater, so I try to make and eat food that is some kind of combination of what my body needs, what it wants, and foods that bring me joy and satisfaction. I'm not trying to torture myself by doing these challenges, so I still eat any other incidental things that I want. Dollar store haul, I spent $5. I got pretzels and brownie mix. So these will be snack or snacks. I got coffee. Last time I got their instant coffee and that really didn't work for me. It was just too weak. It tasted like nothing. So I decided to get their ground coffee. This says it makes 40 cups, so hopefully this will be plenty for this week. And hopefully it tastes kind of good. I got a bag of rice and a bag of beans at Grocery Outlet, which is next door to the dollar store. I got these mushrooms for $1.99. I wrote the prices on them because I was just trying to keep track. This broccoli came out to 97 cents. It was $1.50 per pound. So 97 cents. These red peppers were $1 each. This plantain was 79 cents. And these green onions were 59 cents. One kind of out of the way trip. Honestly, it was the same side of town, but I do like the idea of keeping this to 1 or 2 stores that are close to each other. But the best deal in town on tofu is getting this 2-pound block for $4.35 at the Superfood Warehouse store. So I made a special trip to get that just to be able to add a lot of variety to my meals with some good protein and a really good price tag. And last but not least, I had a few things that I needed, but they were already in my house, so I didn't want to actually go buy them. So I just used the f.i.r.e app to look up the price that they would be if I bought them at the store. One is an all-purpose bag of flour, Kroger brand, and that is $1.49. Eggs, I got cage-free eggs on special, 2 for $5 or $2.50 each. I got those last week, but I'm going to use a dozen this week, so that's $2.50. And a block of cheese is $1.88. Let's get into what I ate. My beans, I'm doing the whole bag, cook them, and then I split them into jars to freeze them. These are all the spices I put in. Obviously, none of them are required, but as I've mentioned in a past video, having a good pantry of spices makes budget cooking so much nicer. I also put a little bit of leftover tomato sauce that I had in the fridge that was just gonna go bad. I dumped that into the pot too, so that's what that looks like. I soaked these overnight, and now I'm gonna get them going in a pot, and I'll show you when they're done. Okay, so I mixed up the dough for my English muffins. I realized that I didn't read the instructions. So hopefully this works out. I mean, probably it will be fine. I also put all these beans together. This really full jar I'm going to keep in the fridge and use first. These other jars have quite a bit of headroom, especially the jars that have necks, which is just that one really. I like the wide mouth because you have less of a chance of things expanding and then cracking the jar when they freeze, and then I just leave lots of headspace. These I'm going to put in the freezer. So I've mentioned this in my last video. I could have foregone my bag of flour, and I could have bought a loaf of bread at the dollar store. But I personally use a sourdough starter and make my bread anyway. Sourdough starter is a really cool thing to have because you can usually get it for free. And even if you didn't have the other ingredients that, for instance, went into my English muffins, which I honestly didn't read the ingredients very well and kind of messed up. But even if you don't have the extra ingredients, you can actually just fry up sourdough starter and make like a flatbread or kind of like a pancake. And if you add an egg in, same thing, you can make a pancake. So I think it's a really great thing to have around. You just need flour to feed it. Okay, so here's my marinated tofu. I used soy sauce, brown sugar, rice vinegar, fish sauce, and some smoked paprika for the marinade. And then the rest of the tofu, I put in this sealable glass container. I'm going to fill it with water to completely cover the tofu while I store it. I'm going to leave this plain in case I want to use it for like scrambles or marinate it with a different flavor. And then I've got this ready to go. Day one, I'm making coffee with this dollar store ground breakfast blend. All right, so I'm trying this dollar store coffee. And it's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It tastes like coffee. It's not bitter, so that's kind of a positive for me because I don't like a more bitter or dark roast coffee. I just have my usual sugar and almond milk. English muffins. They're gonna rise, but I want to eat breakfast, so I'm gonna cook one lonesome one in the skillet. This is half of an English muffin that I just made, an egg, and some hot sauce. Oh, and a little bit of cheese. Day one lunch. I'm cooking the rest of these English muffins. I'll put the recipe below, but I'm not doing a very good job so far. I've got the other half of the one from this morning and a piece of cheese, and I'm running late, so that's just what I'm gonna eat to keep me going till I get back and can have a proper meal. I'm just finishing these up so they don't completely overproof since I've already kind of messed them up at this point. A handful of pretzels. I've got some oil going in my cast iron, and I'm about to add some tofu to the mix. From my pantry, I've pulled out nutritional yeast. This is not essential, but I'm just like, you know, was a teenager in the 90s, so for me, tofu and nutritional yeast go hand in hand. If you don't know, it is a source of protein and B vitamins, and it has a very like cheesy umami flavor, so I'm going to add that in. I will often just like mix this with a little bit of flour and seasoning and shake the tofu in it to coat it, and I may do that later this week, but for right now I'm just going to do a little sprinkle, and the tofu will pick it up pretty well. I'm just giving these a little turn now that they've gotten kind of golden brown on one side. As long as you have a relatively non-stick surface, I like to let the tofu hang out on a low temp as long as possible, and that gets it really nice and crispy on the outside. Alright, so these are ready. As you can see, this non-stick surface works really well for tofu. So I've got pinto beans, rice, and tofu, but I just brought something to my neighbor, a fellow artist, and she gave me some brownies that they had made. They're gluten-free. I think she said they're maple pecan liqueur flavor, and they're really, really good. To breakfast, got half an English muffin, egg, cheese, hot sauce, some paprika, and spike. Alright, so I'm going to stir fry these veggies. I'm going to do my veggies first, and then I'm going to do the tofu, all of the tofu I marinated. If you have an onion in your pantry, go ahead and throw that in. If you don't, no worries. The veggies and tofu are plenty. Once the onions are just sweated, I'm going to add the broccoli. The red peppers are just like so good. Just like extra, I don't know, extra vitamin C. I'm going to give these a little bit of time to steam. fried these veggies and tofu. My rice is not done, but I am too hungry to go on. So it's my breakfast dishes. Eating a little more of the stir fry with it. And the rice came out so soggy. So just having a bad week cooking. And then I made these brownies. These are the box brownies that I got from the dollar store. I had some peanut butter in my pantry, so I drizzled some on. Obviously not required, but I just wanted peanut butter chocolate brownies tonight. So anyway, I made the brownies, and I'm going to have some of these for dessert. This is breakfast day 3. I'm adding an egg, half of an English muffin that I made, and some cheese, spike and paprika. Lunch day 3. I forgot about these mushrooms, so I'm gonna saute them. This is about half of the container. I'm gonna saute them and add them to the stir fry I made yesterday, and I'm gonna have a little bit of that for lunch. Let the the mushrooms get really toasty. So first they'll lose all their water, and then that will steam off, and then I let them get a little bit grilled. And I always have my stove on like a really low setting, up to like medium. I almost never am up at high unless I'm like boiling water, because these cast iron, they just keep so much heat. The things will start burning if they're higher than like about a medium. Obviously, it differs item to item, but for most things like this, I'm sticking to that lower end. Okay, this is lunch day 3. It is rice, stir-fried peppers, broccoli, tofu, onions, which were from the pantry. They're not technically in the budget, and mushrooms. A little bit of green onion sprinkled on top. Dinner day 3. This is just the same thing I had for lunch. I put some everything but the bagel seasoning on top, and I have a class that's starting in like 2 minutes, so I just put this together really quick. Half an English muffin, egg, cheese, spike, and paprika. This is day 4 lunch. It's just rice and the leftover of the stir fry that I made. I don't even know if there's any tofu left in there because it's so good. I think I ate it all. But today was a really weird, busy day, and I had to leave the house early, so I was just able to throw this together super quickly. Day 4, dinner, and I had another long, busy day. So in addition to being a budget week, this is also ending up being a quick time budget week. I have this onion, which like technically isn't in my budget, but was in the pantry. I've got green onion from my budget, mushrooms, and I'm gonna put them together with some tofu and some bouillon, and I'm gonna add some kimchi from the fridge. I'm considering that a condiment, and I'm gonna have a quick tofu soup. I'll show you when it's done. Okay, so this is basically just kind of a tofu stew based off of, I guess, probably several different recipes, maybe like kimchi tofu stew, but just kind of put together with what I have around. If you wanted to bulk this out, obviously if you had some greens, they'd be great in there. And if you had some like shrimp or other kind of meat that you wanted to add, that would be nice too. But the tofu gives you a lot of protein and yeah, some veggies. So I'm excited to eat this and just relax for the night. For breakfast, this is that leftover kimchi and tofu soup, and I just added a couple of eggs and scrambled it with some paprika and green onion on top. It's a little bit of a late breakfast, so I'm gonna call this brunch, and I will see you later. Day 5 lunch. Just having a sandwich with egg, cheese, and it's on one of my homemade English muffins. Egg, cheese, and in this case, a homemade English muffin. This is day 6. Day 6 breakfast. This is day 6. This is dinner. I guess I kind of skipped lunch. I went for a long walk around a park, not a hike, a walk. Anyway, I've got beans and rice, the pinto beans and rice that I cooked earlier this week. And then I've got some tostones, which you saw me prepare. These are, to the best of my knowledge, I know about these from Cuban cuisine, which is really common where I'm from in Florida, and a huge favorite of mine. So basically I cooked the plantain, and then I squished it, and then I fried it again. And you can see they're very crunchy. They're so good. I probably could have done even harder of a fry, but honestly I'm starving, so I just wanted to eat as quickly as I could. And then I just kind of put a lot of hot sauce on everything because again I'm starving and I'm just really excited about strong, robust flavors. So I'm gonna get into this. Okay, this is day 7 breakfast, or it's kind of brunch. I had like a lazy start to the day, and then I Zoomed with 2 of my oldest, dearest friends for my birthday. And then that kind of bled into me having a lunchtime Zoom with my parents, so I'm just getting to eating. This is some of the leftover tostones, and then I stir-fried some rice and egg, and it's just got spike and paprika on it. And that's what I'm gonna eat for breakfast, brunch. Alright, so I'm adding my tofu in. Just breaking it up in chunks. I'm going to add some soy sauce. A good amount because the tofu will kind of absorb that flavor. And I'm going to do a little bit of fish sauce. And then I'm going to do a big bunch of nutritional yeast. And of course, the best seasoning ever, spike. Turmeric is nice to add because it adds a little bit of that color. So now that that's all over, let's talk about what I had left. I had more than half a bag of flour left. I definitely could have done more with the flour, but it was a really busy week. I had 4 of those 5 jars of beans left over. I put those in the freezer, so no worries. That will be, you know, money off of a future week or several future weeks. I had a half a bag of rice. I had a little bit of cooked rice left over, so again, that can just go towards a future week of meals. I had about 3/4 of a pound of tofu left, and the great thing about tofu is that you can freeze it. It gives it a different and for some people a more pleasant texture, so that will go towards another meal this week. But if I was, you know, over tofu for a little while, I could just throw that in the freezer. I surprisingly had coffee left over. I drink just once a day coffee, somewhere between like 8 and 16 ounces. And I rather enjoyed the dollar store coffee. I'm not a coffee snob at all, but I don't like bitter coffee. And this was a very mild, like medium roast and tasted pretty good with almond milk and sugar. A little bit of almond milk left over, a little bit of cheese left over. I didn't use a ton of cheese this week. Everything else I used up completely. I think there are things I could have done differently that could have been just maybe a little more interesting, but I'm pretty happy with the week as it was. I'm glad there were more veggies. I'd say the main flaw with this plan is that it didn't have any fruit. I'm not actually like a huge fruit person, but I definitely find myself missing that. So if I do this again, I'm definitely going to try to incorporate more fruit. Let me know down below what you would have made with the groceries that I got. In my last video, I got so many good suggestions that I have used. I've used in meals since then. Let me know if anything I made looked really good to you, and if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you would like it. And if you are interested in this type of thing and other money content from like an artist, non-capitalist kind of person, please subscribe. I would love it if you would join me next time. I will see you in the next video.